let's talk about the new One Piece chapter 1051, the freedom of Wano. So, yeah, I think this is the big thing here is that Monkey Luffy and Straw Hat Pirate have finally, obviously with the samurai, defeat the Beast Pirate and Kaido and Big Mom. So they have liberated Wano. So Wano is free now from the tyranny of the Beast Pirates and Yamato Orochi. The big thing that happened is that we see, obviously spoilers. So what we see now, we see the aftermath of the big war, and we see that the new era will be uplifted in Wano. We see in the final page Yamato. We see Oden's son grew up and he's gonna be the new shogun. And we see, obviously, he promised his people, please help me to bring up the new era of Wano. And it is a very, very powerful moment in this chapter. Really bring up the power, like the differences, like of how Wano will be and what will happen in the future for Wano. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. And then the other thing is also that how will the world government see this? Will the government let Wano be alone, or will the world government gonna take over it and colonize it as they do to many other countries? For example, the Volga Kingdom, that place that Kaido comes from. And I think this is gonna be really interesting. And I just have to say, if this is really the end of Wano, I really hope it looks like it's the end, and I'm so happy for that. They will leave Wano, that the Straw Hat Pirate can go on the new adventure and a new adventure and see new things. And because I think the Wano arc was too long, so I think it's just nice if they just move on. And I really hope that Yamato joins them on their journey. And so yeah, I think this is really interesting. It really builds up the new expansion of the crew of the Straw Hat Pirates, and new adventure, new foes to fight against, Shanks, Blackbeard, the world government, and so on. So I think so. We're gonna see lots of new interesting things in the future of One Piece and in the other chapters. What I really think specifically of this chapter 1051, I don't really. If I have to be totally honest here, I don't really care, because I think it's okay chapter. I just want Wano to end. So for me, it's like this was like almost like brush it over to wait for more interesting thing in the future. It's more like that. For me, it's like a very cliche speak of Kosoki Oden's son, the new shogun, the new shogun. And so they really, I don't know. I think it's going to be much more interesting in the few chapters to come. And for me, it's gonna be. I'm looking much more forward to see Blackbeard's arc with his crew member like Catherine Devon, Sherry of the Rain, Sanjan Wolf, um, and so on. I'm much more looking forward to that part with these crew members. And the best part of Wano was absolutely, for me, have to be the reveal of King and Queen's devil fruit, and obviously the battle with Zoro against King and Sanji against Queen. I think that was probably the best part in Wano, to see that there's so many ancient and mythical Zoans. So in that sense, the Wano arc was the best arc. If we just look at the variation of Zoan devil fruits, I think it was the best. But in the other department of the chapter, categories of the chapter, was not so much for me as an individual, in that sense, because for for me it's like I think it was lots of I'm not so huge fan of how can I say this? I'm not a huge fan of Japanese uh, pop culture in that sense, because if you know, like, lots of like video game it's most of the time focusing on like samurais and so on, and for me I just want to see other things. But this it was very cool that Wano was very different. When I first believed it was what I first think it was very differently, and because we have so many different cultures in Wano, with like dinosaurs, we have animals from South America. It was very different from the stereotypical Japan manga themes, things. And this what I mean with that was not as like not so weeaboo stereotypical things, and that's what I like with One Piece. It's a reason for me why One Piece is number one as a manga, is because they try to be a different thing. They are not the like typical stereotypical yeah thing. Yeah. So the chapter was okay. I still, the only thing I still want to see from Wano is obviously Kaido's backstory. That is the only thing, but I am much more look. For me, I'm a bit disappointed that this chapter is not talking about Kaido's backstory more, because that was more interesting in this thing. But yeah, maybe in the next chapter we're gonna know more about Kaido's backstory and something like that. Um, um, yeah, so everybody's happy and they are relieved that they are free from the Beast Pirates, and so obviously they have to build up lots of things like new idea, new thinking, because of now Kosoki Oden probably gonna Kosoki Oden's son gonna open up Wano to be more modernized. Obviously, the world government gonna be a problem for them. So I say before, because the world government, if they see something important in Wano, they will obviously attack and colonize it, like the real world, like the big colonial powers in the real world. Obviously, in every, like for example, every colonizing power, always the reason why they colonized a country was because of the specific resources and materials that countries have. For example, the most one we have Congo in Africa. The Belgium colonized Congo um, around 1700 with King Leopold, and then the Belgians, and obviously so on, was because of the rubber and the elephant tusks, but most of the rubber, because rubber was very important at that time for electricity wires and the cars, the wheel of the car, and for the Belgium, and lots of privatized money goes to Leopold in his own pocket. And then we have South Africa with the British, and the British was there first because of the diamonds, and specific also for India. There was the biggest diamond in all of human history that have been found. The Kohinoor diamond was from a place in India, as the first, obviously the Mughal get it when they fight against the Marathas. But the whole point with the whole humanized colonizing thing with the Mughals in India, the British in India, the Belgians in Congo, the British in South Africa, the French in Caribbean, in Haiti, and all of this kind of thing. The Japanese in colonizing of in the Korea, and obviously the Ming dynasty colonizing of other countries. For example, like the other Philippines and so on. Lots of different countries. But the point here with it, what I talk about here is that obviously the world government is symbolizing the colonizing powers that was around the world in different times. So the colonizing power is just world government symbolizing pure dominance over other people and their power trade. For example, you can see lots of similarities with the like celestial dragons and colonizing powers in human history. For example, slavery, discrimination, Belgian and Leopold in Congo, and his people that he sent there is very similar to the celestial dragons, how they treat people, and all of this kind of thing. I think that this is a very very big reason for why One Piece is so popular, because you can see so many similarities, a mirror image of the real world with One Piece. Like how, like for example, one example is like discrimination and racism. You can see that in how, for example, with with slavery and the fish people have is very much characterized in a good and a negative way, in the same good and negative in the same way, same time. They are more like um, what I'm saying here is that this this way of with the African people in the similarity in history with discrimination and racism. For example, apartheid in South Africa and apartheid in Israel and Palestine. We can see a lot of similarities in that way how the world government and humans looks on fish people, and the discrimination, for example, was a taboo it was a taboo for some years ago, that to give blood if you was black, and that is the same thing in One Piece. It was forbidden for a fish person to transmute blood to a human. It was forbidden to do that. And this is what I mean with the similarity, is that you can see connection between these two things. I don't say that black people is the fish people in the One Piece. I don't say that. I'm saying there are similarities in the way of how they are portrayed in the story. So please don't take me wrong here. What I'm saying here is it's complicated for me to say this in any other way, because I know that people gonna get very triggered of this. But you have to understand something, like the same, for example, with Lord of the Ring, and the orcs are symbolizing of mechanics, and they are symbolizing of greed and industrialism's pureness in greed and this kind of thing. And it's a very complicated topic to talk about, because many times you can get it wrong, and you can, some people are very easily offended of it, because it's the similarities. It's absolutely a very similar mindset of the world government as the colonial powers in the human history is very similar. It's like the Goro says, they are inspiration of real leaders of the world, and their leader are members in countries that is infamous for have been colonized in superpowers, and really, like with the I'm really bad in name, but for example, the guy that in One Piece, that he controlled the magma. Sorry, I thought to forget names, but the whole point here is the mindset of the like true justice is only just he believes in, but he don't think what other people think is correct. He think they are lesser. So there's a very fascist. The world government is very based on fascism, because they see that they are superior to others, and just because they have lots of money, they think they can treat people how they want. And they obviously, like the same with the Nazis in World War II. They also have like human experiments, and it's like same as in One Piece with the world government. Also do experiments on people and so on. So it's lots of bits and parts of things that in human history that is in the One Piece story. Yeah, the chapter is okay. I think is gonna be, as I said before, interesting to see what will happen in the future. So the whole chapter was more like an aftermath of the talking. Everybody's like really they won the war. So now I just hope that they will soon leave Wano. And yeah, that is everything I really want to say about chapter 1051. And I don't think it's going to be any break next week. So next chapter next Friday. Um,